The challenges we face today are complex, interconnected, and deeply human. They are felt most clearly at the local level, where real lives are shaped every day. Learning becomes relevant when it is tested against reality. When students step beyond classrooms and engage directly with the world around them. In this real context, they confront real systems, how industries operate, how communities adapt, and how decisions create consequences. Here, applied learning becomes a way of working, a way of thinking, responding, and navigating complexity. At Universitas Harkat Negeri, learning is shaped through collaboration, linking students with industry, communities, and partners across sectors. Local realities become living laboratories. Through centers of study and sustained collaboration, insights generated here extend beyond place, informing solutions with national and global relevance. From this grounding in real context, Universitas Harkat Negeri engages with challenges beyond place by connecting applied learning, research, and cross-sector collaboration. Solutions take shape, rooted locally, relevant globally. This is how future leaders are shaped, through real context, shared responsibility, and a clear sense of purpose, grounded in reality, prepared for complexity, driven to create impact, shaping future leaders with Universitas Harkat Negeri.
Good morning, distinguished guests. We kindly invite all the guests to proceed into the ballroom and take your seats in the designated seating area as the program will commence promptly at 9:30 a.m. We kindly ask for your cooperation to be seated. Thank you for your cooperation.
Nah, foto bersamanya kan tadi cuma bertiga. Jadinya ngajak yang gantian sama championnya untuk main berenang untuk habis. Kan tadi kan foto.
The challenges we face today are complex, interconnected, and deeply human. They are felt most clearly at the local level, where real lives are shaped every day. Learning becomes relevant when it is tested against reality, when students step beyond classrooms and engage directly with the world around them. In this real context, they confront real systems, how industries operate, how communities adapt, and how decisions create consequences. Here, applied learning becomes a way of working, a way of thinking, responding, and navigating complexity. At Universitas Harkat Negeri, learning is shaped through collaboration, linking students with industry, communities, and partners across sectors. Local realities become living laboratories. Through centers of study and sustained collaboration, insights generated here extend beyond place, informing solutions with national and global relevance. From this grounding in real context, Universitas Harkat Negeri engages with challenges beyond place by connecting applied learning, research, and cross-sector collaboration. Solutions take shape, rooted locally, relevant globally. This is how future leaders are shaped, through real context, shared responsibility, and a clear sense of purpose. Grounded in reality, prepared for complexity, driven to create impact, shaping future leaders with Universitas Harkat Negeri.
Bapak ini. Iya. Iya, I know. Iya. Duh, berubah. Parah ya. Gue ngerti. Dihapus aja, jangan ada yang merah. Dihapus aja.
morning, distinguished guests. Welcome to the Introducing Sustainabilitas, Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri. At this time, we kindly invite all guests to proceed into the ballroom and take your seats in the designated seating area. The program will commence promptly at 9:30. We kindly ask for your cooperation to be seated before the program begins. Thank you for your attention and we wish you a pleasant program.
Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu semuanya. Saya ulangi, selamat pagi Bapak Ibu semuanya. Selamat datang di Hotel The Westin Jakarta. Perkenalkan, nama saya Saldi Pratama Putra. Saya adalah Security in Charge pada pagi hari ini dan akan memberikan safety briefing secara singkat sebelum meeting Bapak Ibu dimulai. Hotel kami sudah dilengkapi dengan alat fire life safety equipment, yaitu diantaranya alat pemadam kebakaran, sprinkler, smoke detector, heat detector, dan public announcement speaker yang telah dimonitor selama 24 jam full. Dan sekarang Bapak Ibu semuanya berada di ruangan East Java Ballroom, yaitu lebih tepatnya di lantai ground floor. Apabila Bapak Ibu semuanya mendengar informasi tentang keadaan darurat dari pengarah suara kami, diharapkan Bapak Ibu semua tetap tenang dan tidak panik. Petugas emergency respon tim kami akan mengarahkan Bapak Ibu semuanya ke pintu exit terdekat menuju assembly point. Pintu assembly point kita berada di Jalan Epicentrum Selatan, lebih tepatnya di seberang dari lobi utama kami. Dan pintu exit kita berada di sebelah kiri saya. Apabila Bapak Ibu semuanya mendengar informasi darurat, apabila terjadi gempa bumi, Bapak Ibu semuanya bisa menggunakan 3 tahap ini: drop, cover, and hold. Dan untuk informasi tambahan, untuk toilet kita berada di seberang dari ruangan ini, dan untuk musola bisa menaiki satu kali eskalator ada di sebelah kanan. Dan untuk smoking area kita berada di lobby east perimeter, ada di sebelah kiri. Untuk informasi tambahan kembali, dilarang tidak dibenarkan untuk meninggalkan barang bawaan karena di ruangan ini tidak tercover oleh CCTV. Untuk informasi tambahan kembali, untuk hari ini tidak ada latihan evakuasi. Hari ini tidak ada latihan evakuasi. Sekian safety briefing yang saya sampaikan. Selamat pagi dan selamat beraktivitas kembali. Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Good morning, distinguished guests. Welcome to the Introducing Sustainabilitas, Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri. My name is Alifa Salsabila and it is my honor to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be having the sessions before the lunchtime in English. So for participants who require a translator, please collect the interpretation devices at the back left of the ballroom. And after lunch, we will be having the session in Bahasa Indonesia. First of all, allow us to extend our warmest welcome and sincere appreciation to our honored VIP guests who are present with us today. We would like to acknowledge Mr. Sudirman Said, President of Universitas Harkat Negeri, Mr. William Sabandar, Director of Sustainabilitas, Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri, and Mr. Satya Tripati, International Board of Universitas Harkat Negeri, and all respected leaders, partners, academics, and distinguished guests. Today marks the official introduce of the Sustainabilitas, Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri, an initiative by Universitas Harkat Negeri dedicated to strengthening the connection between sustainability knowledge and real-world action. Guided by the principle of learning by delivering, the center integrates research, policy, and implementation to translate sustainability agendas into practical and impactful outcomes across Indonesia's diverse development context. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to formally commence today's program, may I respectfully invite all distinguished guests to please stand for the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please kindly be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to invite the President of Universitas Harkat Negeri to deliver the opening address. Please welcome Mr. Sudirman Said, President of Universitas Harkat Negeri, to the stage.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, honorable members of Diplomatic Corps, Dr. Satya Tripati and Dr. William Sabandar, our distinguished speakers. Also, I would like to call some of my senior, bapak-bapak mentor saya, Pak Eri ada di sini, Pak Kemal, juga Pak Laude. Tapi bukan senior citizen Pak Laude. Juga Pak Muhammad Sahrial, Ketua Dewan Pembina Yayasan yang membawa universitas, dan Pak Iwan Faidi. Pak Wawan ada di sini juga. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us today. It is a great honor to welcome you to the inauguration of the Center for Sustainability Studies at the University Harkat Negeri. Sustainability is a big word, and today it is a word under serious pressure. Across the world, we are facing overlapping crises that constantly test and challenge our way of living, be it natural disaster, human-made environmental degradation, armed conflicts, growing economic inequality, and most urgently, climate change. These challenges are no longer abstract. They are real, they are interconnected, and they threaten sustainability from every possible angle: environmental, social, economic, and also political. Here in Indonesia, these challenges are especially visible. Over the past decades, Indonesia has experienced a clear and measurable escalation in climate-related disaster. Floods, droughts, landslides, forest fires, and threatened coastal erosion are becoming more frequent and more severe. Rising sea levels now threaten millions of people living in coastal areas. At the same time, shifting rainfall patterns and rising temperatures are disrupting food production, straining water supplies, and also increasing health risks, especially for children and elderly. This environmental pressure intersects with persistent challenges of poverty, inequality, and weak governance. Corruption remains a serious threat, undermining our ability to respond effectively and fairly to these risks. When climate shocks occur, it is always the most vulnerable and the most weakest who suffer and longest. The evidence is overwhelming, the data is irrefutable, and that is not a future scenario. It is our present reality. While Indonesia has committed to achieve net zero emission by 2060 or earlier, the question is whether we are responding with the urgency, integrity, and collaboration that is moment demand. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, many of you in this room are distinguished professionals who have spent years, if not decades, working on issues related to sustainability. Urban planners, transportation executives, environmental activists, policymakers, development practitioners, academics, as well as leaders in food, energy, and water industries. All of you are engaged every day in navigating sustainability challenges in your respective fields. In that sense, today's events actually not belong to us, but it is belong to you. Introduction of the Center of Sustainability Studies at the Universitas Harkat Negeri. This is belong to a practitioner who cares deeply about knowledge and science, and belong to the scholars who appreciate and engage with real-world issues. Under the intellectual leadership of Dr. Satya Tripathi and Dr. William Sabandar, over the past few years, a group of committed individuals has been meeting, discussing, and also reflecting together. They shared our one vision to establish a center that would continuously study, disseminate, and apply sustainability perspective in our daily activities, in policy, also in business practices. This idea began in 2024 when I was reconnected with Dr. Satya in Geneva. After 10 years, we did not meet each other. It continued through a series of informal discussions. In September 2025, we formalized this commitment by signing MOU between the Global Alliance of Sustainability led by Pak Satya and the Universitas Harkat Negeri. The groundwork is continued by Dr. Willy, who worked tirelessly to turn these ideas into reality. We share long-term aspiration that one day, Universitas Harkat Negeri will establish a school of sustainability. The center we inaugurate today is a crucial milestone toward the vision, while we continue to prepare the necessary academic and administrative foundations. We agreed on one simple philosophy: strikes while the iron is hot. We did not want to lose this momentum. We did not want to lose the collective energy. And today, as we can see, the initiatives has been embraced enthusiastically by thinkers, academics, policymakers, and professional practitioners. Now, some of you might ask, why Harkat Negeri and why Tegal? There are many possible answers, but let me share some of them. Number one, it is true that this university is relatively young, but the people behind these ideas are not. Those who are willing to be involved in this effort are individuals with long service experience, wide network, and strong academic background as well as wisdom. Our role at Universitas is in fact is only just to provide a home for people who possess academic credential, the real-world experience, and professional credibility. Second reason, I deliberately challenge professionals and academics to work from places that are not easy. If regions that are still developing, such as Tegal, Brebes, Pemalang, and others that might follow, can generate real measurable impact and these regions become living laboratories, they provide scientific evidence that meaningful change can emerge from anywhere. And we could use the evidence as the pattern for intervention in other regions. And third reason is we want to demonstrate that sustainability is not an elitist issue. It is not confined in major cities or international conference. In fact, it is universal, it is grounded, and it is directly linked to people welfare. For the reason I am committed to serving as administrator, as facilitator, and formal organizer for research, education, and promoting the sustainability practices through this university. As a relatively new and still insufficient understanding about discipline, sustainability requires more proof. It requires evidence, and it requires also successful models. Therefore, we deeply appreciate the willingness, the commitment of practitioners who care about knowledge and who operate their business with a genuine commitment to sustainability, whether it is in energy, transportation, city development, food, environment, management, and manufacturing. We are optimistic that the involvement of practitioners who respect science and value integrity will be the core strength of this center. Finally, on behalf of the entire academic community, Universitas Harkat Negeri, there are some people from Tegal in this room. I would like to express our sincere appreciation to all parties who have supported this initiative. In particular to Dr. Satya and Dr. Willy, I extend my special thanks for you, for your willingness to take the responsibility to develop this center. In due course, Dr. Willy and Dr. Satya will explain the greater detail of the vision, program, and collaboration opportunities of the center. We hope that this center will become one of the sources of solution to many challenges that I have outlined today. May this center contribute to building more resilient, more just, and more sustainable Indonesia and the rest of the world. Thank you very much. God bless you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Sudirman Said, for the insightful and inspiring address. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the founding remarks of the Sustainabilitas Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri. Please welcome Mr. William Sabandar, Director of Sustainabilitas Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri, to the stage.
A very good morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi and hope you are all in health and good condition this morning. Saya tahu cuaca is not in our side, ya, jadi datang ke sini pasti banyak yang terhambat macet. But very much thank you for coming and being able to accept our invitations, although some of you receiving invitations less than 24 hours ago. I texted Pak Eri Riana, I think 12 hours ago, ya, last night. And he says, Will, I'm free, so I can come. Mungkin kita membutuhkan energi seperti itu, Pak Dirman. Because in these situations, action is very important. So those who are coming to this morning event are those who are really dedicated and committed to the effort of sustainability. Thank you very much. I cannot mention enough all of you, but for sure terima kasih banyak Pak Sudirman Said, Director of Universitas Harkat Negeri, my mentor and former boss. In many ways, we are together since the tsunami recovery of Aceh and Nias, and in the last few years we are becoming very close, and then come to this idea this morning in the set of initiative called Sustainabilitas. I will explain a bit in the speech later. Pak Sudirman has explained to all of us the reasons why this initiative exists and the process involving Pak Satya Tripati, who has not been in the room because also trapped in the traffic jam. He just arrived from New York last night and stayed in the hotel in the south. Didn't realize that the distance, 10 kilometers, is not 30 minutes. It's 1.5 hours. So he will be arriving anytime, but will be mentioned, and he will be speaking in the first session, moderated by Pak Agus Sari. So, few days ago, we gathered in the small rooms with some of the champions and tried to decide the theme of this. For sure, this theme actually came from a discussion with Pak Satya and Pak Sudirman, and we decide to give the theme of Sustainabilitas as in 3 words: leadership, policy, and action. And we think this is something that is missing in our dialogue and action today, and that's the very reason why Sustainabilitas then emerged as the new centers, starting with promoting human capability, because this is the very reasons why we need to engage in the discussions, in actions, by having a strong human capability. So let me start with a simple observation. We have mastered the vocabulary of net zero, carbon credit, ESG, and climate finance. Kita bisa berbicara soal isu-isu seperti ini sangat fluent. Di ruang rapat, kita bicara soal, sekarang kita lagi asik dengan carbon trade, carbon market, atau teori tentang sustainability. Tetapi kondisi di backyard kita, in our backyard, is different. Because while papers move at the speed of a speech, the reality is more sobering. Projects struggle to reach financial close. Regulation outpaces implementation capacity. Communities often feel the cost of green change faster than they receive the benefits. This is Indonesia's sustainability paradox. We call it paradox. We are famously rich in natural assets. We have forests, we have mangroves, oceans, biodiversity, critical minerals, renewable energy potential. Yet, we remain short on the most decisive resources of all, which is human expertise. Without the ability to lead, to design workable policy, and to execute action with integrity, our sustainability wealth will not translate into resilient prosperity. So let me be direct. We don't need more ambitious targets. We need more people who actually know how to hit them. So we need people. Target is enough. The real work is not glamorous. It is the unglamorous task of upgrading our national skill set so we can lead those projects ourselves and starting building. So the capability gap behind the sustainability moment. Yes, sustainability is mainstream now. ESG committees are becoming standard. Sustainability reporting is everywhere, but the results have not yet shifted proportionally. We keep seeing the same pattern. Finance is available, but projects are not ready. Roadmap exists, but coordination is uneven. Corporate goals are clear, but supply chains are slow. When outcomes lag behind ambitions, the failures are no longer due to lack of ideas, they are due to systemic deficit in delivery capacity. So too often, sustainability is treated as theme rather than a competency, a campaign rather than capability. And we have to stop thinking of sustainability as simple environmental stewardship or a corporate social responsibility. We had discussed this very long. Sometimes sustainability is discussed only among activists. Sustainability become the core subject of activists. And on the other side, the business leaders is trapped into being not sustainable. I think this is something that we need to bridge. Now Pak Satta is coming. Welcome. Good morning, Pak Satya. We understood you're coming from. So sustainability is not only about morality, it's about competitiveness. As industrial policy and capital costs are rewritten around sustainability standards, treating this as a segmented specialty is a recipe for national obsolescence. In a unified global market where sustainability is becoming an entry requirement, building our local muscles is the only way to compete in the next era of value creation. And that's why we put human talents, human capability as the core of our initiative. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to argue for a simple framework. Sustainability is about leadership. Sustainability is about policy. And sustainability is about action. So these three words will be the main theme of Sustainabilitas under the framework of Universitas Harkat Negeri, which Pak Sudirman Said has just explained. Now let me go one by one to what do we mean by leadership, by policy, and by action. Number one is leadership. This is term coined by Pak Wahyudi Wardoyo. I think Bu Herlina is around here during our discussion that night. And I tried to consolidate all the thinking of the 20 people in the room that night, and this is coming number one. Leadership, the singer, not the song. A simple analogy from practitioners captures the first pillar, the singer, not the song. Sustainability comes with many instruments, regulations, reporting frameworks, technologies, AI, carbon market, financing model. But instruments do not create music. Leadership does. Leadership in sustainability cannot be reduced to title. Leadership must come with responsibility. Sometimes we feel we get the leadership, then we got the authority. We get the leadership, then we get the position. In our hand, there is a pen that can sign everything, and this is leadership. This is wrong, and this is why sustainability never worked for us. Leadership is about service, leadership about responsibility, and this is what Sustainabilitas is all about. So it requires the grit to anchor every decision in clear purpose, the integrity to stay the course when incentives shift, and the patience to navigate long cycles of negotiation, failure, and recovery before any real breakthrough. So let me share lessons I learned in the post-tsunami recovery in Aceh and Nias. Pak Sudirman, my boss during the BRR time, and we remember the late Pak Kuntoro Mangkusubroto. The discussions about the leadership of Pak Kuntoro Mangkusubroto inspired the discussion that evening. Pak Satya is also there, and many of you was in the tsunami operation. Pak Kemal, I remember Pak Eri, KPK leadership at that time. But this is the thing, and hopefully we don't repeat the mistake that we did. From a distance, disaster recovery looks like logistics, building housing, roads, clinics. But in reality, the deeper challenge was governance and trust. Recovery of Aceh and Nias is about building trust and confidence. The tsunami struck on top of conflict, and the hardest question was not how fast we can rebuild. The hardest question was how can we rebuild justly? How can we rebuild fairly? How can we rebuild equitably? How can we rebuild peacefully? Who gets housing first? Who decides land boundaries? How do we prevent corruption when funds are flowing? How do we restore livelihoods without reproducing injustice? In that environment, the most credible leaders were not always the most credentialed. Often, legitimacy came from service, sacrifice, and presence with communities. I remember the discussion in the room. Pak Sudirman might remember, I never know Nias. And when the discussion with Pak Kuntoro that night, Willie, do you want to go to Nias and lead the Nias? And I just say yes. Few months ago, I says, Pak, why did you choose me? Because you are the one, when I ask you whether you want to go to Nias, and then suddenly you go yes without consulting to your family. So this kind of people, I think, you need in this fight of sustainability today. The experience taught me something that remains true today. Sustainability at its core begins where many people avoid looking in fairness, legitimacy, and integrity. This is why leadership development must be field first. Sustainability harus mulai dari aksi, dari lapangan, bukan dari dalam ruang-ruang rapat. It must cultivate the whole person, heart, head, and hand. Ini juga kata yang saya pick dari diskusi kami dengan teman-teman beberapa malam yang lalu. Heart for integrity, head for analytical rigor, and hand for delivery. And Indonesia must widen the definition of who is allowed to teach and mentor. Some of the most capable sustainability leaders are community champions, project developers, and corporate change makers. People who may not fit a traditional academic mold. Sustainability is not taught, mohon maaf, by professor, but by champions on the ground. And this is the stake that we are taking in leading the Sustainabilitas. If you want relevance, our education system must create pathways for experienced practitioners to teach, coach, and mentor without being blocked by rigid credentialism while maintaining academic quality through clear standard and structured learning design. Because sustainability transformation will not be led by only those who can publish, who can write articles in the journal. It will also be led by those who can deliver. This is about leadership. Number 2, policy. Because without rules, cheap wins. Ini diskusi juga yang hasilkan pada malam-malam, Pak Dirman, ini dari satu anak muda, Mas Sano. Sano ada nggak di ruangan ini? Yang cerita soal, you cannot compare sustainability dengan harga murah. Karena itu selalu diperhadapkan. So this is why the second pillar of policy important. Markets prioritize today's price over the future needs. Without firm rules, the cheapest option always wins by shifting cost into ecosystems and future generation. To counter this, we must bake sustainability into the market's DNA. Clear standards, smart incentives, strict disclosure requirement, and credible enforcement. But we must also avoid the opposite trap. Sustainability reduced to bureaucratic ritual. And this has happened. Ketika kita berbicara ide, idenya sangat besar, tapi begitu masuk dalam produk aturan, produk perundang-undangan, dia menjadi sangat dangkal dan ritual. Dan ini yang menghambat why we never deliver sustainability. When templates and reports become ends in itself, they create compliance theater with little real impact. Many practitioners also warn us against a false binary that still shapes public debate, protecting versus developing. And this is outdated thinking. The objective is to develop through protection and to protect through development. Viewing sustainability through a policy lens is ultimately about reclaiming agency, because if we fail to codify our own standard, we effectively hand our industrial strategy to external players. We will be forced to follow rules set by others, rules that dictate the terms of our exports, our access to capital, and our competitiveness. To lead, Indonesia must move from being a rule taker to being a rule maker, aligning our ecological wealth with the hard realities of trade, food security, and national resilience. So this is why sustainability education must teach us serious policy capability, how decisions are made, how institutions behave, how incentives work, how communication shape legitimacy, and how coalitions are built. Great policy fails when institutions and incentives are misaligned. Great intention fail when execution systems are absent. So this is about policy. Number 3, action. And this is what I had experienced, moving from being an activist to being a business. And how you bridge activism and investment. And this is the pillar, is action. Moving from intention to implementation. Many young people, are drawn to sustainability through activism, which is not wrong. And that moral energy is essential. But activism alone is often financially fragile and hard to sustain at scale. Indonesia needs a bridge. Sustainability is as managerial as it's moral and is investable as it is inspiring. This requires moving the conversation from the why and the how. Pak Agusari, Mas Agusari introducing this idea during that night. Kita kalau mau bikin sekolah sustainability tapi masih tetap jadi activism, where did you get the money to run the school? So we need the money. Jadi teman-teman yang ada di sini ada yang kelompok aktivism, ada yang kelompok kapitalis. I remember the discussion with Pak Kuntoro, you kapitalis, you pimpin gitu. And then I become capitalist, but my heart still activist. So you have this mentality, working as activist, but hungry to find the capital to fund the sustainability initiative. So this is the bridge that we need. Sustainability that is managerial is moral. In the global and Indonesian market, sustainability has moved into the heart of business decision-making because markets demand it. It affects cost of capital, export competitiveness, procurement, and risk management. And this shift is as critical for large corporations as it is for SMEs, where environmental and social realities are inseparable from daily survival and long-term viability. And this requires sustainability management. Integrating environmental knowledge into management, finance, operations, and strategy. It means teaching the hard mechanics of the market, how ESG ratings and disclosures drive financing and governance. So action also demands system thinking, seeing the whole without being paralyzed by complexity. System thinking is easy to teach in theory, but difficult to apply in practice. The real challenge is to simplify complexity without reducing its truth. And because sustainability decisions often reveal consequences years later, artificial intelligence and simulations tool can help leaders test scenarios, understand trade-offs, and strengthen long-term decision-making. Artificial intelligence is not substitute for ethics, but it can be a powerful tool for foresight, especially in a country where decisions made today will shape climate, cities, and livelihood for decades. So why the capability gap is urgent? The capability gap is measured in lost time. While capital waits, the financing gap widens because governance bottlenecks and trust deficit make projects readiness the exception. Our progress is stalled by human system that cannot absorb funds. And the world defined by new economic standards, the ability to execute is the only true form of sovereignty. Indonesia's sustainability asset could be a national advantage, but without capability, without human talents, we risk failing into 4 traps. Number 1, extractive trap, exporting raw resources while importing value-add products and importing the risks. Second, fragility traps, repeated disasters because resilience and prevention remain underfunded and undermanaged. And third, the credibility trap, declining market and investor trust because governance is weak, data is revealed, and integrity is questioned. And fourth, inequality trap, green growth that concentrate benefits while communities bear cost. But Indonesia succeeds in building sustainability capability. The upside is equality profound. We can become a practical reference point of Global South, showing that development, justice, and ecological stewardship can advance together. So to do that, we must also change where we build capability. The last point that I will make, sustainability only truly works when paid with justice. And this is term echoed by Pak Trihadi at that night. Justice. And justice demands how we grow the capability across the archipelago, especially in the second and third city, including Eastern Indonesia, where nature is rich, but the stakes are highest. I will explain very soon. The Universitas Harkat Negeri was actually based in, as Pak Sudirman mentioned, in the second tier city, Tegal. Dan tidak banyak perguruan tinggi yang mau mendeklar kita mau go global, go international, starting from the second tier city. And this is the uniqueness when we built with Pak Satya Tripathi, the discussions that before you entered the room, Pak Satya, Pak Sudirman explained the meeting in Geneva and the MOU signing that we have with a Global Alliance of a Sustainable Planet. Pak Dirman, Pak Satya, and myself, relation has gone more than 20 years, starting from the tsunami, and Pak Satya has a reputation to be the Assistant Secretary of United Nations in New York, and completing that post, he then setting a new alliance, now about 350 members all over the world, based in New York, coming from private sector, CSO, university, and we want to tap that knowledge. We don't need to repeat from you, but we not because of the relation that we have. So, Pak Dirman as the leaders, I will be work very much on building the thing in the country, focusing on leadership, policy, and actions. And Pak Satya will connect with all the networks that he has all over the world. So, ensuring that the global see us, and we start from this. So, if I can go to the last, Bapak-bapak, saya jelaskan sedikit, kita memilih kata sustainabilitas. Jadi waktu kita bicara mau merumuskan ini, the aim is School of Sustainability. Cuman karena birokrasi kita nggak bisa langsung bicara School of Sustainability ya Pak Dirman. Jadi kita mulai dengan pusat kajian, pusat studi. We have to start now, dan diskusi malam itu jangan terlalu banyak teori, mulai aja. Mulai aja dengan short course. Ada yang pikir bagaimana kalau bicara sustainabilitas for politician, sustainabilitas for business, sustainability. So, Pak Sahrial was in the room at that night dan mengingatkan kita bagaimana beliau mulai bisnisnya beberapa tahun yang lalu, involving a discussion with Ibu Tri Mumpuni ya Pak. But action. Today when you see, walaupun kebijakan energi kita belum berpihak very much on that, tetapi ada action on the ground. Sahabat saya Pak Mas Ota ada di sana. Terima kasih Pak sudah hadir di tempat ini. But the idea of sustainabilitas, kita coba cek reference, ada fakultas atau sekolah keberlanjutan atau pembangunan berkelanjutan. Kayaknya kurang pas bahasa itu. Kenapa kita tidak menggunakan kata sustainability tapi di-Indonesiakan? Maka keluarlah kata sustainabilitas. Jadi nama senternya sustainabilitas. Ini bahasa Inggris yang kita Indonesiakan menjadi sustainabilitas. Mudah-mudahan nanti dia menjadi satu kata yang dibagukan menjadi bahasa Indonesia. Slide berikutnya. Ini yang kita mau jelaskan tadi, a well-filled platform for Indonesia Sustainability Transition. Jadi bagaimana dimulai dengan sebuah research, development, yang kita bayangkan adalah kita mulai dalam beberapa bulan ke depan, 3-4 bulan ke depan. Saya udah sepakat sama Pak Dirman nih, mudah-mudahan kita bisa teruskan, sky is the limit. Kami nggak mau dibatasi oleh birokrasi, oleh tembok-tembok yang membuat knowledge tentang sustainability atau practice sustainability itu terhambat. Jadi please come to us with the idea. Teman-teman punya rumah, kalau mau berbicara tentang sustainabilitas, silakan datang dengan idea. Tugas saya dan Pak Dirman adalah menyiapkan tempat ini sebagai rumah besar ini sebagai rumah yang nyaman untuk semua orang berbicara menyangkut sustainabilitas. Kira-kira itu yang kita inginkan, sehingga apapun ujungnya ini adalah pada impact. Kalau School of Sustainability ini tidak berhasil menghasilkan sebuah project, investment, and jobs, maka dia tidak memenuhi key performance indicator-nya. Kalau dia hanya selesai di research, dia hanya selesai di develop kertas posisi, advokasi kepada pemerintah, tapi dia tidak translated into investable projects, framework of policy yang jadi aturan, terintegrasi, atau action on the ground yang memberikan impact pada jobs dan investasi, maka kita gagal. Jadi saya ingin hari ini mengajak Ibu dan Bapak-Bapak semua menjadi bahagian dari gerakan ini. This will be a long journey. Saya nggak bisa mengatakan ini sebuah journey yang sederhana, karena ini journey yang kuat, sangat. Pak Dirman malam itu mengatakan, kalau orang bicara tentang ekonomi, very clear, udah ada body knowledge tentang ekonomi. Orang bicara tentang politics, udah ada yang bicara, ilmunya udah banyak. Kalau orang bicara tentang sosial, ilmunya udah banyak. Tapi kalau sustainability, selalu dititip, oke, sustainability and economy, sustainability and policy. We want to build the 4 sectors, namanya sustainabilitas. Itu yang hasilnya kita lihat. Dan yang terakhir, ada satu lagi enggak? Slide terakhir sebelum I close this. Learning by delivering. Kebetulan saya lahir dan dibesarkan dari environment yang kerja. Tapi kerja ini dikaitkan dengan system thinking yang selalu diajarkan oleh mentor Pak Kuntoro. Berpikir sistematik tapi outputnya harus di sana. Jadi what we think itu adalah a practice university built for delivery. Redesigns the university around delivery, not knowledge production alone. Kita bisa membuat inisiatif ini di Papua, di sebuah masyarakat adat, dari orang Papua, dari masyarakat adat di Papua, kita belajar tentang prinsip-prinsip sustainability. Dan yang kami bayangkan adalah connecting it with the global world, bagaimana dunia belajar tentang praktek sustainability di sana. Kadang-kadang kita datang dengan pengetahuan kita, we know everything, we teach the people about sustainability, while the condition is the other way around. Kita justru harus belajar dari mereka, dan ini yang kita harapkan. Kemudian integrates theory, learning, and applied research within real transition projects, and continually feeds projects-based learning back into theory, policy, and market practice. Saya kira itu, slide terakhir, selesai. Ini yang terakhir. Jadi mulai dari field Tegal Living Lab di Tegal. Kalau Ibu dan Bapak-Bapak punya kesempatan, we want you to visit Tegal because itu adalah living laboratory kita. Kenapa di Jakarta? Center ini akan dibangun di Jakarta and not far from here. Sedang disiapkan dan mudah-mudahan dalam beberapa waktu ke depan kita mulai. Sayangnya ruangan di sana tidak bisa menampung jumlah yang sebesar sehingga kita mengambil keputusan praktis untuk melakukan pengenalan itu di sana. Tapi the city like Jakarta ini adalah tempat di mana policy is being made, di mana jaringan is being built. Jadi kita akan menghubungkan antara Tegal dengan Jakarta sebagai center of excellence about sustainability, termasuk di sini. Dan kenapa? Karena tadi menghubungkan aktivisme dan capital dan market connected. So Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, at the end of the day, sustainability is a generation moral question about what we owe those who follow. And the answer will come not from slogans, but from leaders with integrity, policies with credibility, and actions that deliver. Indonesia does not lack sustainability resources. Indonesia lacks sustainability capability. Closing that gap through leadership formation, policy competence, and action that bridge activism and investment may be the most important nation-build task of our time, building the capability of Indonesian people. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak William Sabandar, for the comprehensive address of introducing the Sustainabilitas Universitas Harkat Negeri. Distinguished guests, We will now proceed to the launching ceremony of Sustainabilitas Center for Sustainability Studies, and today's launch marks the official introduction of Sustainabilitas as a shared identity and as an institutional platform by Universitas Harkat Negeri. And this platform is designed to bridge sustainability knowledge with real-world delivery and to also connect research, policy, and action into concrete and implementable outcomes. The establishment of this center also signifies a commitment to cross-sector collaboration, bringing together government, academia, and the private sector, civil society, and also development partners to generate actionable and impact-driven sustainability initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, to officially inaugurate the Sustainabilitas, we kindly invite the following distinguished guests to join us on stage. To Bapak Sudirman Said, President of Universitas Harkat Negeri, to Bapak William Sabandar, Director Sustainabilitas, to Bapak Satya Tripati, International Board of Universitas Harkat Negeri. Ladies and gentlemen, may we kindly invite all invited dignitaries to please proceed to the stage. Baik, Bapak-bapak, alright, please kindly face the camera to commemorate this moment. Okay, now, on the count of 3, please open the front of the cloth. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah. Okay. At this moment, Pak Sudirman, Pak William, and Pak Satya, please remain in this position for a group photo, and I kindly invite the documentation team and media partners to proceed with the photo session. Okay, already done with the photo session. Next, please kindly remain on the stage as we invite distinguished figures. Sorry for the documentation team and media partners are involved in the development of Sustainabilitas. To Bapak Eri Riana, please kindly come to the stage. Bapak Kemal Stambul, Ibu Herlina Hartanto, Bapak Bernardus Jonoputro, Bapak Bernard Yohanes, Bapak Fabi Tumiwa, Bapak Darsono Hartono, Bapak Manggala Santosa, Bapak Syahrial, Bapak Ahmad Santosa, Bapak Laode, Bapak Agusari, Bapak Widawan Prawira Atmaja, Ibu Atika Rahmania, Bapak Amin Subekti, Ibu Nirata Koni Samadi, Bapak Marco Kusuma Wijaya, Ibu Andita Firseli Utami, Ibu Nurdiana Darus, Ibu Maria Dian Nurani, Bapak Rusdian Lubis, Bapak Wicaksono Sarosa, Bapak Meta Dharma Saputra, Ibu Rebecca Angelin, Bapak Iwan Faidi, and Bapak Fazlur Rahman. Bapak Trihadi Sapoadi. Please, Bapak-bapak and Ibu-ibu, kindly come to the stage as we commemorate this special moment. Okay, please kindly stand on the stage, Bapak-bapak. Silakan Bapak-bapak berbaris. Apakah sudah baik proporsinya tim dokumentasi, Ibu? Oke. Baik, silakan untuk tim dokumentasi di lead foto sessionnya. Two, three, smile. Thank you very much for the documentation team and also the media partners. We kindly extend our sincere appreciation also for Bapak Sudirman Said, Bapak William Sabandar, and also Bapak Satya Tripati for officially inaugurating the Sustainabilitas. We kindly invite all guests to please kindly return to your seats and the program will continue. Okay.
Yang pertama terjadi di Jawa Timur saat memasuki fase
kapasitas di PLTS Gili Trawangan saat ini itu sebesar 600 kWp.
Renewable energy is generated from sources that naturally replenish themselves and never run out. The most common sources are solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, and biomass.
54,6 megawatt energi.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the launching video of Sustainabilitas Center for Sustainability Studies, Universitas Harkat Negeri. We hope that the video has provided a clear overview of the vision and also commitment of Sustainabilitas in advancing leadership, policy, and action. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, semoga masih pada semangat. We will now proceed with the next agenda, ladies and gentlemen. Now we continue with a fireside conversation entitled From Pledges to Practice, Financing Nature and the Just Transition. Bapak Ibu, this session will be hosted by Bapak Agus Sari, CEO of Landscape Indonesia, and joining him is Bapak Satya Tripati, Secretary General of the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet and former United Nations Assistant Secretary General. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bapak Agus Sari and Satya Tripati to the stage.
Pak Dirman yang saya hormati, Pak Willy, ladies, gentlemen, friends, colleagues, have a good morning. I'm here to pay an honor to the invitation to host this fireside. Just think that there is fire here. Fireside dialogue with a very good friend of mine, Pak Satya Tripathi. And today I deliberately wear my blue shirt. And for those who know, who on a daily basis would wear blue shirt, and there's nothing else. Yeah, Pak Almarhum Kuntoro Mangkusubroto, who I regard very, very highly, and probably is the thread among all of us here. Someone whose leadership is very well known, and whose heart is in the right place. So Al-Fatihah to Pak Kuntoro. What I remember is when I was working with him, or a long time ago, a little bit, at the closing of BRR, and then UKP4, and then the Red Plus, and then when the Red Plus agency was folded and brought into the newly established Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Pak Kuntoro developed and established what was called the Leaferology Institute. And people ask me, what is the Leaferology? And I think the same way people ask here what Sustainabilitas means. Yeah, it's a new term, and the easiest thing I responded to some of my colleagues, what it actually was defined as, is the science of getting things done. Basically, that's what the Leaferology is. And apparently, Sustainabilitas brought back that concept. We need to deliver. We need to get things done. And there's no one else that would probably be better in discussing about this than a good friend, Pak Satya Tripathi. He was involved in the BRR and also UKP4, and eventually my counterparts at the Red Plus agency, when I was asked to be the financial deputy of the agency, and I work very, very closely with Pak Satya. We know that, managing $1 billion requires the highest level of integrity. You will not be bothered by, how much temptation. Yeah, and not only internally, but also externally, because we need to actually work with people who've destroyed some of our natural resources, destroyed some of our forests. We need to work with them. And, these people are not easy to work with, They do all they can to find ways to get away from accountability. And I'm very, very happy that I was, at the time, surrounded by very, very high integrity people, and Pak Satya is one of them. And what I'd like to get started is, of course, first to introduce, and probably Pak Satya would also add some more. In addition to the chair of what was then called UN Orchid, Pak Satya was assistant to the Secretary General of the UN, and also now chair of what is called Global Alliance for Sustainability. What's the P? Planet. Planet, yes, GASP. And so without further ado, I have basically 3 points that we'd like to discuss. First is delivery. Yeah, how can we deliver? And of course, Pak Sudirman Said and Pak Willy have already laid out some of the concepts of deliveries. And then second is, how can we finance? How can we make sure that sustainability is not only about external aspects of the organization, but also internally? How can we make sure that our movements sustain. And then the last one is basically about structure. You know, we are living in a very complex world. Delivery, of course, has its complexity. So how can we navigate around it? I think I would like to ask Pa Satya to get started with the first point, Pa, delivery. There are many good programs, good plans that didn't get delivered. Yeah, I think it would be good to get your insights on why and then how, if there are some changes that is required to do.
Thank you, Pa Agus. It's always a pleasure to be back in Indonesia, back in Jakarta, back in the company of such wonderful friends that I hold in great esteem. Let me start by talking a little bit about the UN because it's contextual. The UN, when you work for the UN in a leadership position, you often go around the world in assignments where you're looking for capable counterparts, people that can actually lead so that you can support them. The job of a UN leader or an international civil servant is not to lead. It is to help leaders flourish, come into their own and perform to their best of their abilities and the greatest expectations of the people they are there to serve. The job of the UN is not to lead. That's not why the UN was created. It is only when leadership fails that the UN is invited to do something. So the UN's job is not leadership. The UN's job is to support leadership, find its voice, find its purpose, and find why they are there in the first place. So when my first encounter with Indonesia was back in 2006, when the Secretary General set up something called the UN Office for Recovery Coordination, Office of the Recovery Coordinator, which was called UNORC, and I was appointed to be the UN Recovery Coordinator. And so I was coming then from Liberia, where I was the Chief Policy Advisor to the President for the transition process from the civil war into a proper functioning country. I'm very proud that that country has actually remained democratic in the last 25 years, and it has done extremely well given the African context. So that's where I was coming from. And second day of my arrival in Aceh, I go and meet Pa Kuntoro because he was the government leader, and so I was reporting to my counterpart that I have arrived and I'm here to support your vision. So we had a very friendly conversation, and I said, what do you think is the biggest challenge, because I'm here to support, so I want to know what he feels, And he was reading Compass, the English version of the journal, which you are all familiar with. And there the headline article was about, it was a comparative study of corruption in India, Indonesia, and China. If you can lay your hands on that article, it is a beautiful one, back from 2006. I'm sure you can find it. These days, everything is available on the internet. And the first paragraph frames the whole article, and it starts by saying, in India, corruption is under the table, meaning there is corruption, and if you pay under the table, you might get things done, right? In India, corruption is under the table. In China, corruption is over the table, And in Indonesia, it includes the table. There is nothing more profound, as humorous as it is, there's nothing more profound I have come across in my last 20 years of relationship with Indonesia, that a leader who is so humble that he is asking his international counterpart to read an article which actually puts his country down. I was really surprised. And then he told me, this is our biggest challenge. Integrity is our biggest challenge. And in one flash of a moment, I realized that I have come across the best leader I will ever have the privilege of working with. Because here is a man who's humble enough to understand his greatest weakness, and I'll tell you why it is the greatest weakness of any recovery operation. The statistics is this: when the UN goes out and builds these partnerships, and then we have these big donor conferences, and people promise billions of dollars, you know what our record is? 17%. That's how much money really flows through. Mostly during the humanitarian phase, and then later on nothing happens. You know what the record of Aceh recovery is? $7.2 billion were promised, $8 billion happened. That's what happens when leaders understand their true challenge. And so integrity was at the heart of everything that happened. And that's what has to be, when we are teaching leaders to be sustainable, it is not about integrity in money terms. Pak Kuntoro was, of course, talking about integrity in money terms because it was a lot of money and a lot of people interested in that money. But it is the intellectual integrity. That is what makes sustainability leaders. Absent intellectual integrity, you are looking at a piece of a puzzle. You are not looking at the whole jigsaw puzzle, the whole image. The whole image of Indonesia is this, is that it is one of the greatest reserves of biodiversity in the world. It has one of the most sacred of indigenous communities anywhere on the planet. People talk about indigenous people in fashionable terms. Here is the statistics, and I'm just coming from Davos in one of the conversations in the main Congress Center with a lot of very flashy people, Matt Damon, Water.org, and everybody else. This conversation was happening. And indigenous people are actually 5% of the population, globally speaking. And they have, so if you look at ecosystems that are still intact, they have 50% of it. If anybody has doubts about, are they protectors, are they stewards, that's the evidence. 50% of the remaining serene, pristine, still virgin ecosystems on the planet, 50% of that is indigenous people's habitat. And Indonesia is one of the greatest preserves of that heritage. Of course, here we don't say indigenous people, and the same in my country, in India, people get very excited when you use the word indigenous people, especially people in the government. But what is indigenous is simple, is that people that have remained true to the calling of the land, the calling of Mother Nature. And the other side, the 95% is all of us, most of us, is the so-called modern world that has destroyed itself. And so we keep growing and we keep being blind to the externalities of modern development, and those externalities have now become existential threats. In India alone, Dalberg did a study. Air pollution kills 1.7 million people a year. The damage to the Indian economy is $95 billion every year. And this is not activist data. This was a study that Dalberg did in partnership with the government of India. It's published information. If you Google, you'll find it. So that is the challenge. When we make these decisions, and when we talk about delivery, delivering what? That is the biggest question to ask. What am I leaving for the future generations? The consensus of everything, every scientist now, is that we are about to breach 1.5 degrees of global warming. The leaders in Indonesia, especially the people in this room, are iconic public intellectuals. we need to think very hard about what happened to a country of thousands of islands when sea level rises. Greenland is talked about, very geopolitical terms, but the biggest thing to talk about about Greenland is that the ice there is now melting 12,000 times faster than in earlier times, 12,000 times faster. That's what we should be worried about Greenland, actually. And the worst of everything is that in Davos, another statistics, President Trump, Chancellor Merz from Germany, European Commission head Ursula von der Leyen, President Zelensky, the famous speech from Prime Minister Mark Carney, all of that put together was 4 hours of leadership talk. Not once was climate change or global warming mentioned. Not once by any of these leaders in the world's most important forum. I mean, of course, they have their priorities. I am no one to judge them. But all I am trying to say is that a leader has to speak their mind. You can't just in private conversation say climate change is important, global warming is bad, and we need to do something about it. When you stand up and speak, people must hear you loud and clear. So that's the second part of delivery, is that you must articulate yourself, not in private conversations, but in public dialogues, what you feel. Bapak Willy, you talked about the head and the heart and the hand. They must speak. Yes, of course, the head has the mouth and it speaks, but everything speaks. The hand speaks. If you're a musician, it's your hand that speaks. If you're a politician, it's your mouth that speaks, of course. But if you are a philosopher or a spiritual leader, it's your heart that speaks. That's what people connect to. So all three must speak in unison that we are in a really bad time, and countries like Indonesia that have the greatest wealth of natural heritage have a lot to offer to the world. And when all of that happens together, then you have actually reached the pinnacle of delivery. Delivering not just for the human of the species, but delivering for all the 8 million species who actually keep us alive. It is the bacteria that we don't see, the microbes that we don't feel, they actually clean up the water every day. 1,000 times more than the chlorine we keep putting into our urban water to make it drinkable. So every species actually aids and abets our survival. Whether it's in the rainforests or whether it's in the oceans, the big DNA soup, as scientists call it, all of it works together to deliver us the most important thing, which is life. And I sincerely hope the center, Sustainabilitas, will deliver purpose to that life. And there's no country better than Indonesia to provide that leadership, because you go example after example after example. Indonesia stands out in the global stage, whether it is the tsunami recovery, whether it is the stopping the deforestation, whether it is creating, I worked very closely with Pak Kuntoro. This is after he finished his UKP4 thing, and I was finishing my UN Orchid leadership role. I went to him and said, Norway put up $1 billion, but we still couldn't do much because of a lot of reasons. Should we try it differently, private finance for public good? And we managed to produce the world's first $400 million scale protection of a forest that is 6 times the size of Singapore. Everybody in Davos, when in Brazil they launched the Tropical Forest Forever facility, everybody in the room was talking about the Tropical Landscape Finance Facility, where the inspiration comes from. That was all about Indonesia. I wanted to do this, and I went and met people, and we all managed to do something, but I'm the outsider. It happened in Indonesia. The industry is Indonesia. The the entrepreneurs are from Indonesia. It was Barito Pacific. The leader was Pak Kuntoro. He was the board chair. And everybody coming together and believing that it is possible, then you produce something that is truly extraordinary in every sense of the term. So that is the heritage that Sustainabilitas draws from in terms of delivery. And delivery is not about delivering education. It's about delivering education in a way that everybody in that classroom goes out to be a champion of Mother Nature, a champion of sustainability, and champion of protecting the immense natural heritage of Indonesia.
Thank you very much, Pak Satya. That was the first point, and what I extracted from your responses was that leadership was pretty much key. I remember 10 years ago when I asked Pak Kuntoro, Pak, could I write something? Could I write a book about leadership through principles? And I ask you to be the model of that book. Today, the book has not been finished, 10 years, because there's not enough number of people that I could use as the model for leadership through integrity, leadership through principles. And I'm very happy that leadership and integrity have been brought up again. I would like to follow up on your TLFF and then your TFFF. It was actually originally developed by the remnants of the Red Plus. I remember that time when it was established. The $400 million initiative. I'd like to go to the second point, which is finance. Yeah. We believe that public finance is no longer capable of course, financing everything about sustainability, everything that we'd like to get done. But at the same time, public funding also has been dwindling because of the more uncertainty in the world. Countries have put more money into military than into ODA, for example. In this situation, we need to mobilize through other means, and in which case, private investment, for example, would be very strategic. And I'd like your insights on that, Pa.
Thank you, Pa. Let me go back to the TLFF example, the project with Barito Pacific in Bukit Tigapulu. The government did not have to spend a single penny. The first time I remember meeting Pa Luhut, because he became my counterpart with the new government, with Pa Jokowi was sworn in. He became the KSP, and so in the UN system, the government changed, but the counterpart remains the same in terms of position. So I was calling on Pa Luhut to meet him and to discuss with him two things. One was, of course, we were thinking of hosting something called the Tropical Landscape Summit, which was hosted in 2015 in early stages of the government, and roughly 1,500 people attended, with lots of leaders from different countries and UN organizations and everybody else. And the second was to throw up this idea of the TLFF, and of course, it is fashionable to say nice things about people when you are in their homes, but I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am to Pa Luhut for his leadership. Because he could have easily told me, oh, why don't you focus on your stuff you are doing, He said, oh, that sounds interesting. What do you need? I said, well, I just need the president's blessings. He said, well, I can give you my blessings, but for the president's blessings, I'll have to ask him. So he said, okay, have a seat, have some coffee, I'll come back in 10 minutes. He said, explain to me what you are talking, and I explained to him. He stepped out, came back in less than 10 minutes. He said, I spoke to the president, please go ahead. And then he asked me, what do you need from me? I said, you have to lead. I will follow. I said, this is exactly how I worked with Pa Kuntoro. This is how I expect to work with you. He said, no, Pa, you are doing it, so you lead. I said, no, I'm the foreigner. I can't lead. That's not my life principle. I'll follow. Will you lead? He said, yes. He said, what do you want me to do? I said, well, can we have a conversation with the leaders of the banking sector in Indonesia? The next thing is, 2 days later, every bank CEO, managing director is in Pa Luhut's office. Pretty much everybody. And then I presented what the idea is. And the next thing we know, 6 months down the line, thanks to Pa Kuntoro and his leadership of the board, we launched it. It was launched where? It was an autonomous body, set up with help from the UN and others. We launched in the coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs in the auditorium with half of the cabinet present there, including the former vice president, Pa Budiono was also there. And he was excited about the idea. And then we launched on 26th October. I still remember that date because it was so profound for me. And 6 months later, we produced a $400 million investment in Indonesia without a single rupiah of government money involved. That is the power of partnerships. That is the power of governments leading. That is the power of government leaders trusting their counterparts. And that's why I'm so grateful to Pa Luhut, because he trusted me. And trust is not in short supply. I can tell you from my own experience. Partnerships are not in short supply. Now, the organization that I lead now, the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet, has more than 400 member organizations now, including many UN organizations, countries, civil society organizations, intergovernmental organizations. What do? We are a catalyst. We are completely free as a catalyst. Nobody has ever paid us a penny. We will not accept it because that's how we avoid conflict of interest. And of course, an organization needs money to run. The people that donate to us have no agenda. We do not report to them what we do. We just tell them your money was used in a meaningful way. That's what I write to every donor at the end of the year. I'm certifying that the resources you provided were used in the service of Mother Nature with full integrity and in a meaningful way. And I sign. I don't provide accounts. I don't tell them this country, that country, no quotas, no nothing. And a lot of people help us, and I'm immensely grateful to them. What do? We build partnerships. We bring everybody together. The biggest member in money terms of the Global Alliance is Federated Hermes. Federated Hermes is a $900 billion financial institution. So money is not in short supply. It is ideas and partnerships and leadership that is in short supply. Once we bring all of these three things together, why did the $400 million project happen? Because there was a company called Barito Pacific, which was willing to go that extra mile and spend more money to be sustainable. And the miracle is this: the first tranche of $95 million that we raised from the Singapore capital markets at costs below the sovereign borrowing cost of Indonesia, with not a dollar of sovereign money, was a 15-year bond. It was paid off in 5 years. So sustainability pays. It's not charity. So the long and short of finding finances, and we would love to help anyone that has ideas, from sustainable rubber plantations to sustainable palm oil to ecosystem level rejuvenation ideas. As long as we are working with Mother Nature, for Mother Nature, in support of Mother Nature, we are all in. I will close by an example from India. And Pak Kuntoro actually went to India for the launch of that partnership in front of 10,000 farmers. This was back in 2018, on the 2nd of June. Pak Kuntoro and Meza, who used to work for Pak Kuntoro, two of them, they came, and they were on, Pak Kuntoro was on stage with the chief minister of the state. They were trying out a program that already had 40,000 farmers. They were doing farming without any synthetic chemicals or pesticides. That program is now the world's largest sustainable agriculture program. 1.8 million farmers, mostly women, are already enrolled in the program. By the end of next year, by the end of 27, they'll have 6 million farmers enrolled, which is the entire farming community of a state of 55 million people. I share that because we borrowed the idea of TLFF and we took it there. We call it Sustainable India Finance Facility. It was the learning from Indonesia that helped that experiment in India, which is now everybody's, and the chief minister was in Davos. I hosted him at a high-level roundtable. The world's who's who were in the room, in the nature space, and it's just too good to be true. Everybody's mouth, this was coming out first. I can't believe it. That 1.8 million farmers, already 2 million acres healed, regenerated, producing clean food. With farmer incomes gone up by 50%, yields gone up by 11%, and the ecosystem is thriving like never before. And the finance story there is the most important part. When the numbers started growing, the German Development Bank came forward and gave 210 million euros to that program at 0.45% coupon, which is pretty much free money. Yes, it's a loan, it has to be paid back. You know what? The state was already spending $1.5 billion every year on fertilizer subsidies. In 3 to 4 years' time, they'll save that entire money because there is no fertilizer used, so no subsidies. So, as the chief minister was speaking, he said, this is subsidy avoidance without the political pain. Because you're not talking about subsidies, you're talking about a better model. Then the model deals with the subsidy question. Otherwise, in a reductionist way, leaders start a conversation around subsidies. I need to increase it, I need to reduce it, and that's how people don't like you anymore. Oh, he wants to take something away from us. But when you're doing the right thing, you're actually giving something, and in the process, a lot of things will change because you don't need it anymore. Why would you need subsidies when you don't need the fertilizer to start with? And so the German Development Bank loan will all be paid back with zero cost to the government. That's another model. But it all came out of here. We learned here, we transplanted the idea there, and now it is the world's largest sustainable agriculture program. So that takes me back to what I was saying, that Indonesia could be the nursery of sustainability for the planet. And really sharing in terms of the global south, learning and bringing it to the financial world. And this is important, and with all, I love the German Development Bank and what they did for our women farmers there. But the first time I approached them was about 2 years before the time they came forward by themselves. They said, oh, we don't do agriculture. It's too risky. If somebody else funds it, come back and we'll talk about it. This was in 2019. 2021, the numbers grew to 300,000 farmers. Suddenly everybody started talking about it. Then they stepped up, they came, they themselves said, oh, we want to talk about it now. And so, you know, there is a saying that make yourself so big and so strong that all doubts melt away. And then trust happens automatically. And then finance will flow. Yes, everybody talks about the geopolitics, the wars, and a lot of money going into militaries and all. But trust me, the global economy is $105 trillion. There is always enough money for the right things and the right causes. When people say they can't find money for disaster recovery, the same world gave Indonesia $8 billion. So I'm a believer, I'm not a skeptic in that space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But that was exactly the spirit that we need to discuss and also to internalize among us, especially now. We need to talk about the size of the economy, not only the budget of the government, and I think the public budget, and I think that is very, very important. And TLFF, TFFF, and the Indian case that you just brought up actually show that that when we are talking about the entire economy, there is more than enough for good ideas. But Satya, I'd like to continue talking about this this complexity of the ecosystem. Yeah, there's policy, there are ministries, there are civil society, financiers, both domestically and internationally, and if I'm asked who should be the most experienced and seasoned navigator in that would be you, Pak. From Pak Luhut all the way to the farmers in the field. I would like to ask you to share your experiences and probably some lessons learned that we all can hear from you, how you navigate that complexity.
Thank you, Pa. Well, structure is self-defeating. We often make ourselves a prisoner of structure. If you take ants, you take a white paper, a big white paper, and you take a pen, you draw a circle, and you put a bunch of ants inside, they will never cross that line. It's an imaginary line. They never cross that line until somebody accidentally tumbles over. And then, whichever line you draw, you can never keep them inside. Because the moment they tumble over, they realize that it was an imaginary line. The line doesn't exist. Same with humans. In my case, I was heartbroken that such an extraordinary partnership was not working out. Because when you put $1 billion on the table, everybody and their cousins have an opinion on how the money should be spent. Who should it be spent on? And why are we even doing it? These rich countries are making tons of money. And I heard a lot of people even complaining that, Norway makes trillions of dollars from oil and they're putting this small little $1 billion here and $1 billion there to look good. And why should Indonesia keep its forests and stop its development? I heard that a lot. Indonesia should not keep its forests because somebody is putting $1 billion on the table. That is so insulting. Indonesia should keep its forests because it's the right thing to do. It should keep its forests because it protects its ecosystems, the species, the biodiversity. For its people, it conserves water. And it's a very powerful country, in metrics terms, fourth largest country by population, world's largest archipelago, world's greatest reserve of biodiversity. I could go on and on and on. It should do it for that reason. Not because somebody gives money. That is really insulting to even believe that Indonesia would ever do something for that reason. But it is a good trigger. If somebody is doing it, Norway putting up that $1 billion is the right thing because they make a lot of money exploiting nature. So when they are putting up that $1 billion, it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong about it. I'm not grateful to Norway because they are putting up $1 billion. I see that as an opportunity. When we set up the Tropical Landscape Finance Facility, how much money we spent? Of course, I was working pro bono, so there was no money in it for me, but we still had a lot of staff and we had to rent space and all. We spent only $500,000 that we raised from different donors to produce a $400 million project that employs 50,000 people directly and indirectly in several provinces of Indonesia. Now that's what is the power of thinking right and why you should do this. And so structure should not be the prison of our mind. When we did the TLFF, it was all intuitive, driven by a very strong sense of belief. So I remember Pakuntaro asking me the question. I went prepared, I said, he's a very intelligent man. He's going to ask, why are you doing this? This is finished. You go home, you enjoy your time or do something else. I have finished Red Plus. I can teach at ITB, and I don't have, he could have easily told me all that. The only thing he said, Pa Satya, you think this can be done? I said, yes, Pa. That was all the conversation we had. Okay, I'll be the board chair, no problem. Who else do you need? I said, Pa, whosoever you think is the right people. Okay, you take care of the international ones. I'll take care of the leaders in Indonesia. So he picked up phone and we had some of the most iconic individuals on the board of the TLFF. Nobody ever took a single penny for anything, ever. That's the power of virtue. So when leaders come together to do these things, you're signaling, it's called virtue signaling. Then everybody else is ready to step up and do the right thing. So did we have the answers when we started? No, we didn't. So like a jigsaw puzzle, we find one piece, oh, this looks good. This might work. Then you find another piece. Then you find another piece. And then suddenly in 6 to 8 months' time, you have a beautiful picture of a protected forest 6 times the size of Singapore. It is still the best protected forest in Indonesia by a mile. And so that's what happens when people believe in something that is delivered to them, not just promised. So I sincerely hope that when the center starts functioning and the leaders that will go through it, and I think, I sincerely hope, and when I was discussing with Pa Sudirman and Pa Willy, I said, if it is just another school, there is no point of doing this. This must be the nursery of future leaders of Indonesia. The leaders that will be anchored in service and sustainability. Because there is no service without sustainability. If it is not sustainable, you're serving yourself. You're not serving anybody else. Because then you are destroying the ecosystem. It is short-term gain, but you leave nothing. I was speaking at a big gathering 2 years ago, and I looked at a room full of about 1,000 people, and I said, do you feel ashamed that you're stealing from your children? Because that's what we're doing. We are stealing from our children. We are taking away their future. When we make these decisions, we are actually stealing from our children. It doesn't seem like that, but that's the harsh reality. When our children will need, scuba divers gear to breathe on land, that's parent stealing actually. When they won't have water to drink because all of it is contaminated, if they don't have clean air to breathe, they won't have clean food to eat. It is we who stole from them. We stole their future. So that's what sustainability leaders have to understand, that I'm being a responsible citizen, I'm being a responsible parent, I'm being a responsible member of the community. And that is the structure we should strive for. Not some, artificial structure we keep in our minds, whether it's a building or a space or an idea or a formula, mathematically speaking. No. It is that I am being responsible when I serve the cause of Mother Nature. We often, most of us, I'm sure there might be a few atheists in the room, but those of us who believe in religion, we pray an invisible God that we have never met. And at the same time, we destroy the visible God that has given us life, that nurtures us every day. That's Mother Nature. So, if we truly believe in the divine and the spiritual and God the Almighty, that's Mother Nature. Everything else doesn't matter. So if we serve Mother Nature, create the structures in your mind, whatever works for you. Don't let structure be your prison. And the moment you think outside the structures that society has given you, that systems have given you, that technological thinking has given you, or what is called techno-evangelism, that technology will solve all our problems. No, technology is not going to solve all our problems. Artificial intelligence is the same thing as money. Go back to Adam Smith. Money is a great servant, but a terrible master. Same thing with artificial intelligence. Technology can be a great servant if we know how to make it serve our interests. Otherwise, it will be a terrible master. Thank you, Pa.
Thank you very much, Pa. It's amazing. We still have 14 minutes, and I would like to actually ask two more questions, Pa. The first one is you've talked about, basically the idea that a structure needs to follow purpose and not the other way around. Yeah. So let's think not only outside the box or the circle, as you say, but think as if there is no box. Think as if there is no circle. And I'd like to ask actually on a little bit on the structure, which is policy. What do you think is the role of policy in all that? The policy in terms of deliverables, and policy in terms of finance, and also policy in terms of the structure. Is policy important? And if it is, or if it is not, then what should we, go about it?
Well, policy is just a tool, Pa. In the toolkit there's a lot of tools, and policy is just a tool. What should drive us is purpose. Mm-hmm. And policy must follow purpose, not the other way around, There's a policy, let me find some purpose. That's the wrong way of looking at how policy works. And so, if policy follows purpose, you will always find the right policy. So if the purpose is to protect the ecosystems, if the purpose is to draw from nature only as much as it can sustain, not what is called regeneration, is that you don't draw more than the power of the ecosystem to regenerate. And so what mostly happens is that, I'm reminded of a beautiful interview from Steve Jobs. He was very young at that time. This was early days of Apple. He was speaking, I think was speaking at Harvard University. And to the graduating class, very smart people. So he asked, how many of you are going into consulting, McKinsey and this and that, and a lot of people raised their hands. And he said, what a terrible waste of intellectual ability, And then he said, well, listen, I have nothing against consulting firms or McKinsey or anything for that matter. What I'm saying is, you are going to make or support the making of policy on which you have no stake. You are not answerable for the outcome. And you will be long gone to a cushier job by the time the real impact of that policy is felt by the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So if you really want to have a fulfilling life, find a job where you give advice, but then stay till that advice's impact is felt. And so that is the biggest challenge of policy. People that make policy, whether it is the political cycle, elections every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, different countries have different cycles. So we blame politicians for making bad policy, but sadly the politician must live by the political sword. And the political sword for the politician is the political cycle. They must deliver in a very short time frame so that they can go back to the population and say, I did something that had impact on your life. Unfortunately, nature does not work like that. A tree to be meaningful in terms of the stem and the trunk and the shade and the leaves and ecosystem services, depending on the species, it could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, it could be 30 years before you really see the impact. If you are looking for an impact in the next 3 years, the tree is not going to provide that. You will not see a forest in 3 years unless you're putting up a Miyawaki forest. But even those do not become natural dense forests in 3 years. They grow very fast, but still not a 3-year forest. So the challenge always is that when you are thinking very short term, the policy is also very reductionist. And so that's what Sustainabilitas needs to do, build an army of leaders that actually think long term, but act short term. So your frame is much bigger, even though you have to take decisions in the short term. And absent that training and that imagination, you don't even know what you're doing. And so that's the biggest challenge, that leaders need to be sensitized. And in one of the things I certainly hope that we do at the Center for Sustainability Studies is to invite leaders actually, Bhupatis, or mayors, and have immersion programs for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and bring in the best practices from the world. And one of the things that, Pa Jokowi, I personally feel that his rise to leadership, this had a big role to play. For those of you that might remember, the Kota Kita app when he was mayor of Solo. That was a tremendous breakthrough where everything you are spending as public expenditure within a municipal jurisdiction, people had a say. And that would then lead him to greater ambition, and then governor of Jakarta, and then the president of Indonesia and all. So, so there is no limitation on what you can imagine and what you can achieve. Even though he could have easily thought, I am the mayor of a small city and I am doing some app. But that's not what it was. It was a leader finding purpose. And then that purpose finding expression in different platforms, in different levels of governance, And now, of course, people may have different, everything you do, there are people that praise and the people that may criticize, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that when you do something, everything has a resonance, everything has meaning. And so even at the lowest level, the little things that you do, when I was heading UN Orchid, we did a study of the water supply systems in Jakarta. The water supply that comes to Jakarta, and we did a comparison between Singapore and Jakarta because it's a neighboring city and a big city, although not as big as Jakarta. The revenue water in Singapore at that time was 95% from the water that is processed and put through the pumps and reaches homes that people pay for. That's what they call revenue water. In Jakarta, it's 50%. So if 50% of the water is never accounted for or paid for, how will be a public water supply system profitable? Yeah. So that's the challenge. So if you are not thinking, and whosoever was running that thing or managing it, if they had thought about it as leaders, that, okay, you know what, I really need to focus on the revenue part. And one of the simple things that could have changed everything was the intermediate pumping arrangements. Because, water comes from a source, and every few kilometers there's a booster pump. Now, if you did a study of what is the water supply need of different parts of the city, because not every part needs water at the same time, or the same quantity. So if you just calibrated the pumps in different parts of the city for different times, by doing that study, we found that you will at least save 26% water. Just changing the pumps and putting a timer in them. So that's, if you're thinking sustainability, you will find solutions. Of course, that never happened because UN Orchid closed, and then we moved on to other things. But I it quickly came to my mind as an example that when leaders are putting that as their core focus, that whatever policy I am making must have short-term effect but long-term impact. So that time frame is extremely important.
Yeah, thank you, Pak. I think my last question before we close this very, very exciting discussion with Pak Satya is probably your insights on how sustainabilitas could flourish. Yeah, what kind of role it plays in the entire ecosystem of sustainability and sustainable development in Indonesia, how it grows, how it proceeds, and what should you, as a friend, tell Pak Sudirman Said, Pak William Sabandar, what they need to do, Pak?
I actually have a real responsibility, Pak. I'm the chair of the
Of course,
international
yeah,
board,
and
so
to yourself, of course.
I have a real responsibility. So I'll have to do more than that, not just be a friend to Pa Sudirman and Pa Willy, because I don't take any responsibility lightly. As much as I am grateful for them inviting me to be the chair of the board, but that's not the point. The point is, if they are inviting me, it is an expression of affection and respect. I must prove worthy of that affection and respect every time. If I don't, then I failed them and I failed myself. So I take it very seriously, first thing. Second thing is that, I think, there's a lot of, like I was in Davos just 2-3 days ago, and I was in some very important conversations where one of the major speakers was somebody from Harvard, somebody from INSEAD, somebody from Oxford, somebody from... Didn't see a single one from Indonesia. Maybe they were there and I was not in those meetings, possible. I'm talking about academics. I'm not talking about leaders, there was a lot. Prabowo was there, and there's a lot of other leaders who was there. I went to the Indonesia Pavilion and met a lot of friends as well, Paroslan and others, and so I was there. But I'm talking about bigger conversations in the Congress Center or in other big gatherings. I did not see a single academic speaking from Indonesia. That is extremely important. Presence is very important. I certainly hope that Sustainabilitas would be that mouthpiece of Indonesia in the biggest global forums. Because then you are not speaking for yourself. If a minister speaks, if they speak too high, they say, this guy is praising himself. If they speak low, he has no self-esteem. He's speaking low of his country. But if you are an academic, there is a certain assumption of integrity and neutrality attributed to you. So whatever you say is received well. Low or high or less or more doesn't matter. Then it is given a certain level of acceptance, and then that's extremely important. To be present in these big conversations. So I certainly hope, and do not underestimate, this is not about some fancy trip and showing up and talking something. It's not that. This is the alternative voice. This is the voice of the intellectually gifted community, the public intellectuals, the scholars, and the entire collective voice, if I may, of the country, highlighting. Of course, the politicians will be there and they'll speak, and that's normal. But this really adds to that gravitas in ways that is difficult to explain, because I'm in a lot of these conversations and I see that all the time. And I was like, yes, I mean, the professor from INSEAD, she was speaking very well and she had some great insights. But I can bet my life there are enough professors out of ITB that will present even better insights. It's about the ambition. Do you really want to be in these conversations? And if you are in these conversations, then opportunities open up. And so that's the one important thing for presence in these conversations. That's the first thing. Second thing is that, and I already mentioned this, the ambition has to be not the best in Indonesia or in the region. The ambition has to be the best sustainability school in the world. And will we get there tomorrow? No, certainly not. It will take time. But Shakespeare famously said, man's reach must exceed his grasp, or else what is heaven for? So our reach must be much higher than our grasp tomorrow, or in 6 months, or in a year, or in 5 years. But if that is the ambition, then eventually we'll get there. Even if we fall short, we'll still be the best sustainability school in Asia, if not in the world. I'll still be happy with that. So let's keep our ambitions high. That's the second thing. And the last thing, let's be very entrepreneurial. The live laboratory thing, most of the students that get a degree, they go around wandering for internships. Because why do people do internships, even free internships? When the UN doesn't pay anybody for internships, there's a General Assembly resolution that prevents it. But for every UN internship we advertise, we would get 500 applications, at least. Free. People would pay to live in New York or in Geneva or in Vienna or wherever and do that. Why? Because it opens doors. The degree doesn't do much. What if we open 1,000 doors while they are studying for the degree? That's what would be the true power of Sustainabilitas, and we should have entrepreneurship at the heart of everything we do, not just in the leadership group, in the president or the dean or the board. Every faculty member should be an entrepreneur. Every classroom session should be about entrepreneurship. Then you would have truly built something absolutely world-class, and then someday we'll say, this is when we changed the way the world thinks about Mother Nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pa Satya. That actually reminds me that I ran a summer school at Fletcher School in Boston, and actually we brought a lot of people from Indonesia. Some of them are in this room, including Pak Willy. And it appears to me that we're actually talking about some similar things. Just to close this very, very exciting dialogue is that, Pak Willy mentioned about 3 points of recipes, for success in sustainability, leadership, policy, and action. And I see that as 5 points, Pak. The first point is leadership. The second point is leadership. The third point is leadership. The fourth is action. And the fifth would be policy, because policy needs to follow, not to be the lead point in this. With that, I would like to ask you to join me in applauding Pak Satya, who's very, very kind in sharing a lot of insights to all of us. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Pak
Pak.
Satya.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Pak
you.
Dirman, Pak Willy.
Thank you very much Bapak Agus dan Bapak Satya. Please kindly remain on the stage, Bapak-Bapak. I would like to invite Pak Sudirman Said to give a token of appreciation to the stage. Please, for the documentation team, kindly commemorate this special moment. Okay. All right, may we kindly, all right. Yeah. Thank you Bapak Sudirman Said, Pak Agus, and also Pak Satya. Okay, after this, we would like to commemorate this moment. Pak William Sabandar, please kindly come to the stage. Please kindly come to the front of the stage so the documentation team could commemorate this moment. Huh? Okay. Also to Bapak-Bapak distinguished participants, Bapeda dan Baperida Provinsi Jawa Tengah, Kabupaten Tegal, Kota Tegal, Kabupaten Brebes, Kabupaten Pemalang, and Civitas Akademika Universitas Harkat Negeri, please also come to the stage so that we can have a photo session. Oke, silakan di-lead untuk dokumentasi. Sudah? Sudah ya? Baik, terima kasih Bapak-Bapak dari, oh ya, silakan. Bapak-Bapak dari Civitas Akademia Universitas Harkat Negeri, kemudian Baperida dan Bapeda Akademika Universitas Harkat Negeri, silakan untuk naik ke atas panggung dan melakukan photo session. Baik, silakan untuk di-lead tim dokumentasi. Lebih rapat lagi Bapak-Bapak, Ibu-Ibu. Baik. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu, that marks our fireside conversation. Setelah ini kita akan break lunch dan dimohon para hadirin untuk kembali ke ballroom area pada pukul 12.45. Lunch akan disediakan di depan ballroom di foyer area. Jadi silakan Bapak Ibu yang ingin beristirahat, sholat dan juga makan bisa menuju keluar ballroom. Kemudian untuk media partner yang ingin melakukan doorstop, boleh silakan maju ke depan bersama dengan Bapak William, Bapak Satya, dan Bapak Sudirman. Para hadirin diharapkan kembali pukul 12.45 ke dalam ballroom. Terima kasih.